Dragon Log 135. It's been about 2 weeks since I left that crazy lady with the birthmark in that alternate dimension. It was wild getting to see dragons different from those from my world. It seems that only dragons from my world can grant powers to the Dragonborn. I wonder if it has something to do with the legendary dragon deity of this world. Maybe they don't exist in other worlds. I'm not too sure about it, seeing as it was my first time venturing off through the rift. But I am certain of 2 things. 1, that I'm going to miss the hot springs at Cordest. And 2, I'm glad to be back on my quest to obtain powers from 20 different dragons of this world. My trusted steed, Pasquarella, and I reunited upon my return, and we set off to find the sea dragon following its familiar scent. Using the abilities I gained from the Draconic Canine, which enhanced my senses, has made this search a lot easier. I traveled through the Vagnatic territories and made it to the coastline of Moriel. It was there that I saw it. I saw the dragon whose scent I had been following for the past 1,000 miles. From behind a sand dune, I was able to see the worm leave the ocean and slither on land. The worm was about 60 feet in height. Its arms looked mighty. The fingers were webbed and fins stretched across their forearms and tail. It had razor-sharp fins lining its spine as well. It took me a moment, but I was able to identify the species the moment I saw its maw. The worm was Jaws Titus, a fearsome draconic creature with a mandible that could expand to incredible lengths and sharp teeth that could pierce the toughest of dragon hide. Also unique to this species is an antenna that can channel radiant energy. In the water, the species of dragon might even give the mighty Atlantean king dragon a tough time. Luckily for me, it was on land. This was a great opportunity for me to practice the dragon shout I gained from the sand dragon. I ran out onto the beach and used the sand shout. A large gust of sand blew towards Jaws Titus. I may have miscalculated the power of my shout. It didn't faze the dragon at all. In fact, it didn't even notice me as I approached. Being the Dragonborn, this was rather embarrassing. Usually the dragons can sense me. We battle, have a telepathic discussion the way dragons do, and they see just how awesome I am. I was momentarily startled by Jaws Titus and its mighty screech. When I looked towards the beast, I realized it had yet to notice me. Its gaze was locked tightly towards the cliff that overlooked the coastline. I looked up and used my enhanced strength, but it was my enhanced hearing that allowed me to hear the snarl of the approaching enemy before I saw it. The snarling sound grew louder in my ears, and soon the sounds of roaring. From the ground, I was able to see an orange figure, the source of the sounds I heard. The roar became mightier, and I was certain all of Moriel could hear it. After the roar, it began its descent. That's what I'd like to say, but it was more like the creature jumped off the cliff and headed directly towards the sand. When it landed, an eruption of sand sprayed the air, looking seemingly mightier than that of my shout. I really should practice that attack more. As the sand settled, I could visibly see the hairy creature. It was another large dragon, only this time it appeared to be a drake, a wild drake. It was roughly the same size as Jaws Titus. The orange-furred wild drake had unique black stripe patterns around its neck and upper arms. It walked on all 4 legs. The front legs closely resembled human hands, with only 4 digits. The back legs looked very strong and had feet that resembled most dragon species. The tail seemed as though it held the key to the drake's balance. The most terrifying feature I could determine about the wild drake was the fact that it didn't possess any eyes. So how was it able to maneuver the way that it did and know where Jaws Titus was? The 2 titanic dragons began to battle. Jaws Titus, although disadvantaged by the territory, proved to be a worthy adversary. It channeled radiant energy into its antenna and discharged a beam of energy towards the wild drake. The wild drake sidestepped the beam as though it could plainly see it. It then tightened its muscles and its hind legs and lunged forward towards Jaws Titus, leaving a spray of recoiled sand up in the air. The wild drake swung its inside arms and claws ready to meet their mark. Jaws Titus slapped the ground with its mighty tail and evaded the strike by propelling itself into the air. For a moment, the worm appeared to be flying. As it descended, it opened its mighty maw wide and bit the back of the wild drake's back. The wild drake must have been in immense pain by the sound of its roar. I ran out to see if I could stop these dragons. I attempted to connect with them telepathically, but it failed. Communication with these 2 dragons wasn't going to be as easy as the communications that had took place between me and the other dragons thus far. I began thinking, if I could slay these mighty dragons, then the power I obtained from them would certainly help me on my quest to bring about peace. Oh, how I was sadly mistaken when I thought I could handle these 2 titans by myself. In the instant I walked up on the sandy beach towards the two dragons, my body froze upon hearing a massive roar that somehow made my body tremble. The vibrating roar didn't come from the two dragons in front of me. They came from the shadow figure preparing to land on the beach in front of me. Flying in from the sky was an enormous dragon. This dragon may have been around 300 feet in height. It towered over the dragons with its imposing figure. Up close, you could see that its skin was very reflective in areas and rough in others. Its skin was made of a green diamond-like substance. This must have been the ultra-rare diamond dragon that I heard of in legends. Once I saw the dragon in front of me, I was able to gather my courage and took a step towards it. I attempted to make contact with it, but like before, it proved futile. Something was very different about these dragons. I couldn't communicate with them like I have the others. Did this have something to do with me entering the other dimension with Decurdia? I shook the thought from my head and grabbed my sword. I began to run in, but the diamond dragon started shooting crystallized shards from its arms. I was able to evade the attacks easily enough. Jaws Titus and the Wild Drake roared as they took damage from the attacks. Jaws Titus repaid the diamond dragon with a powerful radiant beam of energy. The Wild Drake roared and attempted to scratch and bite at the left leg of the diamond dragon. Using the abilities I gained from the glowing green dragon, I channeled green energy into my hand and released it at the diamond dragon. It didn't seem to do much damage at all. In fact, its skin reflected my attack back at the Wild Drake. The Wild Drake then slid across the sand and remained motionless. Jaws Titus began biting the right arm of the diamond dragon, but couldn't put a dent into the dragon's diamond hide. I tried channeling the strength of the Cryptian Super Sky Dragon and struck the dragon's leg as hard as I could with my sword. I managed to put a dent in the seemingly impenetrable skin. This only made the dragon mad, swung its tail and Jaws Titus at me. I tried going intangible, but I forgot that the ability doesn't work on dragons, and I took some major damage. The diamond dragon began approaching, but it would seem Jaws Titus and the Wild Drake were not done fighting. The three continued to attack, and I slowly got to my feet. It's difficult to explain what happened next, but I'll do my best. Rage began to sink in, and my mind began clouding. My skin began to burn, and dragon scales began growing on the skin on my forearms. The nails on my hands began growing into claws. The teeth in my mouth became sharper, and the inside of my stomach began to burn. I ran towards the Wild Drake with agility I never possessed before this transformation. When I closed the gap, I roared, and fire left my mouth, scorching the Drake and leaving him on the ground. I then ran towards Jaws Titus. It swung its tail at me, and I evaded easily by jumping into the air. I balled my hand into a fist, and it came crashing down square into the dragon's face. It spun around before falling to the ground. The diamond dragon held its gaze at me. It leaned over me and roared. Unlike last time, I had control over my body. He roared again, and this time I felt him trying to communicate with me. The diamond dragon approached me and touched my forehead with one of his claws. Instantly, I felt like my spirit was pulled away from my body and merged with that of the diamond dragon. Once our spirits merged, I was able to truly communicate with the diamond dragon. He told me that he is an ancient dragon. Ancient dragons have an older language than the dragons born today. He told me that it had been centuries before he had seen a dragonborn who could use the dragon soul armor technique. He explained that dragonborns blessed by the dragon deity can unleash tremendous power that transforms their bodies to fight on equal footing with dragons. He further explained the downside to the gift. It uses up dragon essence that I absorbed from other dragons, meaning that I lose access to one of my gained abilities. After a little more educating from the diamond dragon, he granted me a new ability. As our conversation ended, I felt my spirit return to my body. The Wild Drake began to move. He winced and whined and slowly moved up the coastline, avoiding me. I must have left quite an impression. I also saw Jaws Titus slither back into the water, leaving behind one of its teeth. The diamond dragon roared and flew off into the distance. I stood there thinking about the events that had just happened. I unlocked an ability that seemed to have been lost to the dragonborn for centuries. I lost one of my abilities, which I'm afraid to find out which one, but I gained an ability from a powerful ancient dragon that I'm not quite sure which ability I received. Either way, I guess things are about to get a little more interesting. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave this video a like, and comment below what else you think I should turn into dragons. I've already worked with Spider-Man characters, DC superheroes, famous cartoons, FNAF, One Piece. I'm open for any suggestions that you guys might have. So go ahead and leave it in the comments below, and hopefully you'll see it in another future video. If you're interested, you can watch the full playlist of me turning things into dragons, and I'll link it here in the card and in the description down below. Next week, we don't have a video being posted, so I'll catch you all the following Thursday in the next video. Y'all take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Bye-bye.